Class is for graduate students. It's advanced pathophysiology. It's pathophysiology of altered health states. It's about 240 plus students. So the type of content of the course requires that most of the lectures be given in a PowerPoint format. So I was trying to think of different ways to sort of shake that up a bit, because that does become sort of boring for students after a while. And the idea of group projects, which I've used in the past, came to mind. That thinking about maybe we could have students develop a case study. And so if we could have done something in a group, sort of a group format, that is one way to sort of lessen the grading burden. But I think it also creates an assignment that helps students learn from one another. It also helps them to think about how, as they are out in working after they receive their degree in as an advanced practice nurse, that they will be working in teams. And so it was another way of thinking about how to enhance their learning about getting along with people, how to create groups, how to share opinions, and how to appreciate various ideas around a given topic. So last year we had an assignment that surrounded annotated bibliography, where students had to choose a topic of interest, and then each student chose an article, and then they constructed an annotated bibliography around the topic.
I can actually speak to that because I took this course last year, and that was my assignment. So I experienced that as a student, and then experienced this project as an instructor, which is definitely a different perspective.
And some of the general comments were very positive. I thought the majority were.
The way that they interacted allowed them to retain the information. Even though they were just working on specific parts of the project for their section of it, they still had to really work together and really have a global understanding of the subject in order to kind of bring it all together.
And I think, too, it was interesting to see that a number of students said that they had no idea how to create a blog, and that they thought that was not only fun, but very informative to them. They really enjoyed doing that, and it did allow them to be creative by adding videos and images, so it made the case study very interesting for the readers.
Yeah, and I think they also, it seems like they enjoyed being able to look at each other's blogs and kind of see what else is out there. More likely to remember it if you read the pathophysiology on another group's blog versus just the typical from the textbook and from lecture.
Well, I think this one student in particular had a particular specific comment about the differential diagnoses. They really liked that part of working together and figuring out, well, creating their patient, and then working together and discussing the differential diagnoses.
Yeah, and I think that really ties things together nicely for them, not only from the perspective of this course, but also that's what they're going to be doing eventually. I mean, that's, especially as they step into the next semester, most of them are going to be taking advanced health assessment, and I think it's a nice segue for them to be thinking about differential diagnoses and thinking about what a chief complaint is, and how you present a history of present illness, things like that.
And help them to realize that indeed they will be advanced practice nurses in the future, and they will be diagnosing and treating, and it kind of brings that realization. I think it's very important that up front the instructions are very clear for the students on how to create this blog, and to how to create their groups, how to communicate among the members. And I think that the blog case study example that we created could have been sort of enhanced. As I look at it now, I can see where I could have enhanced it with more images, because we did ask the students to add images, adding videos or an audio of some sort to also enhance the subject matter. So I think that would be really important to make sure that that's clear. And also, to clarify, although the rubric was put in the syllabus, I think we could have improved even more on how the case study was going to be graded, very specific, how many points for each section, how we were going to evaluate it, et cetera. So anything we can do to clarify all those instructions up front makes it a lot easier for the instructors and the students. For me, I think the primary reward or pleasant surprise was just how wonderful the majority of the case studies were that were created, how creative they were, how much time you could tell that, for the most part, students put into this project, which makes me think that they enjoyed it, for the most part, and that they learned along the way, that they that evidently it had to have been helpful for them, just looking at what was produced by these groups of students.
I think for me, actually looking at the feedback from the students from their survey, how much it seems like they took away from working in a group. Or I feel like I learned a lot more being in this group atmosphere. I honestly didn't expect so many positive comments about the group work.
They learned a great deal about how to form groups, how to work with others, how they appreciate other people's opinions, and that they learn from each other because of that. I really would recommend this assignment to other instructors if it fits their course. Trying to think of ways to streamline the grading process would be something I would like to work on, and then perhaps consider placing students in groups rather than having them form their own groups, which is something that several students commented on, that they would like for us to create the groups for them.
Another thing that a lot of students commented on was the ability to grade their group members, and so I think I would definitely incorporate that into the overall grade of the project, just a small portion of to give them a chance to evaluate their peers. I think that holds the students to a higher level of accountability when they know that that's going to happen.
Well, I think another way that we could enhance the overall outcome of the project would be to provide a couple more examples of case studies that we have created, to give them some different ideas of how they can do the project, or instead of just focusing on one topic of basal cell carcinomas was the topic of the case study we used, but maybe doing a couple others just to sort of broaden their view of how that could be done.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it was a good idea for us to have the table of choices of the common conditions that they could choose
Definitely.
from. Because I think maybe we had about 12 or something like that, ankle fractures, hypertension, very common conditions, so that they didn't get way off track into an area that perhaps wouldn't be quite as helpful, at least from my perspective, of when they're in practice. So I think having them have a very clear choice, having a variety of choices, but still limiting that.
Yeah. They had to choose their own groups, and that kind of gave them a starting point for, I want to do hypertension. Does anyone else want to do hypertension? Whereas if you didn't give them any suggestions, it could be, I mean, they could spend years picking groups.
Yes.
Because there would be just so many choices out there. So.